In the silent hours of the night, when the world sleeps and the noise of the day fades away, a true Stoic finds his greatest strength, not in action, but in reflection. The Stoic Emperor, Marcus Aurelius, used the nighttime not for indulgence, but for inner mastery. His nights were sacred moments of solitude, writing, and self-inquiry. Far from the chaos of the Roman court, his true battles were fought in the quiet corners of his mind. This video unveils 10 powerful secrets from those quiet Roman nights. Practices that helped Marcus keep his soul calm, even while leading an empire. These are not just rituals of an emperor, but timeless habits that anyone, yes, even you, can adopt to reclaim your nights, reset your thoughts, and end each day with deep peace and clarity. 1. Writing a personal reflection journal. For a Stoic emperor like Marcus Aurelius, the night was not a time for escapism or indulgence. It was a sacred space for honest dialogue with the self. In the quiet of his chamber, away from the noise of the Senate, the battlefield, or the flattery of the court, he would open his journal not to record events, but to confront his soul. He wasn't writing for posterity or legacy. He wasn't composing speeches. He was simply untangling the knots of his inner world, one thought at a time. This nightly practice, known today as reflective journaling, was one of Marcus Aurelius's greatest tools for cultivating wisdom, humility, and self-control. In his meditations, we find traces of these reflections, raw, unpolished, deeply human. He asked himself what he had done well, where he had failed, what anger had clouded his judgment, and which desires had pulled him from the path of virtue. The page became a mirror for self-accountability, not self-punishment. A Stoic does not fear weakness, but ignorance of it. To admit one's flaws is not weakness, it's strength. Through journaling, Marcus could catch the subtle lies of his ego, observe his emotions without being ruled by them, and realign himself with his highest values. This was not self-criticism, it was self-cleansing. Like a warrior cleaning his sword, he cleaned his mind, removing resentment, regret, and arrogance with each word. He would often remind himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That level of awareness comes not from chaos, but from the discipline of daily introspection. Journaling then becomes not just a tool for organization, but for transformation. In a modern context, this ritual remains just as powerful. Before bed, take 5 or 10 minutes to ask yourself, what did I learn today? When did I react impulsively? What triggered my emotions? What would I do differently if I lived this day again? The goal is not to be perfect, but to be better. Not to judge, but to understand. The point of this quiet confrontation is to anchor yourself, not to the past, but to clarity. Let the page be your private temple. No filters, no pretending, no performance, only honesty. Reflection. In a world that constantly demands our attention, the act of sitting with your own thoughts may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. But this is precisely why it matters. In silence, you discover your true self. And in the simplicity of a nightly journal, you reclaim control over your inner life, thought by thought, truth by truth. True strength is not the absence of flaws, but the courage to face them. 2. Reflecting on today's actions and mistakes. At the end of each day, a Stoic does not seek escape in sleep, but understanding. Reflection is the quiet discipline of the wise, an honest review of one's choices, thoughts, and behaviors. For Marcus Aurelius, this nightly ritual was a form of soul maintenance. Before surrendering to rest, he would retrace the hours behind him and ask, where did I act with virtue? Where did I fall short? To reflect on one's actions is to reclaim authorship over one's life. Most people drift through their days reacting instead of responding, blaming instead of owning. But a Stoic knows that self-examination is not self-punishment, it is freedom. By analyzing one's decisions with humility and curiosity, we unearth the patterns that shape our character. We see where pride slipped in unnoticed, where fear disguised itself as anger, where we said too much or failed to speak up when we should have. The point is not to dwell in guilt, but to gently hold our imperfections in the light. To see clearly is the beginning of choosing wisely. Marcus did not view his mistakes as failures, but as data, feedback from life itself. If he lost his temper, he didn't simply regret it. He examined what triggered it. If he acted impatiently, he didn't justify it. He questioned what belief caused it. This is how a Stoic sharpens their inner blade, not by ignoring wounds, but by cleaning them with honesty and resolve. The question is not, was I perfect? But was I better? And if not, what will I do tomorrow to make a wiser choice? You don't need hours or eloquence to reflect. A few sincere minutes are enough. Sit in stillness. Scan your day. See where you were generous and where you were selfish, where you honored your principles and where you betrayed them for comfort or pride. Take responsibility for your energy, your words, your impact. In doing so, you take your life out of autopilot. You shift from being driven by habit to being guided by awareness. You transform your life from something that merely happens to you into something you are actively crafting, day by day, night by night. Reflection. We often fear stillness because it confronts us with truths we've been avoiding. But in that discomfort lies our potential. When we dare to examine our own missteps, not with judgment, but with clarity, we open the door to real growth. Growth is not born from perfection, but from the courage to face your imperfections with intention. Third, recalling the Stoic virtues. When the world grows quiet and the distractions of the day fade into the silence of the night, the Stoic philosopher turns inward, not to ruminate over fears or desires, but to return to the core of their being, virtue. For the Stoics, the four cardinal virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, are not abstract ideals. They are the pillars of a well-lived life, and at night, when the mind is still, these virtues speak the loudest. Wisdom asks, did I act with understanding today? It is not about appearing intelligent, but about seeing clearly, thinking deeply, and discerning what truly matters from what is trivial. Courage whispers, did I face what I feared? Not all bravery looks like bold gestures. Sometimes courage is simply telling the truth, setting a boundary, or showing up despite doubt. Justice questions. Was I fair to others? Did I uphold what is right even when it cost me? Justice in Stoicism is not about perfection, but about being in right relation with self, others, and the world. Temperance wonders, did I restrain my impulses? It teaches us the balance between excess and deficiency. It's the art of saying no to what tempts us away from who we want to be. Each night, the Stoic revisits these virtues like sacred stars in their moral sky. The day's actions are held against them, not to invite shame, but to realign the soul. If wisdom was neglected, tomorrow offers a new attempt. If courage was avoided, tonight is the time to rehearse integrity in the theater of the mind. This daily recentering is how a person becomes unshakable, not overnight, but over thousands of small conscious realignments. The world may call for performance, but Stoicism calls for presence. While others chase success or validation, the Stoic pursues virtue for its own sake. The fruit of this pursuit is peace, a kind not dependent on the opinions of others, the outcomes of efforts, or the chaos of the external world. This nightly practice of recalling virtues is not about being good in a moralistic sense. It is about being anchored, principled, and awake in a world that often tempts us to sleepwalk through life. Reflection. In a world constantly shifting, virtue is your compass. You don't need to control the future if you're grounded in what's timeless. Each night return to what matters, not your image, not your success, but your soul's alignment with truth. Virtue is not something you visit, it is where you live. Make it your home each night, and peace will follow you into the morning. Fourth, revisiting the teachings of past Stoic philosophers. In the quiet of the evening, when the noise of the world fades, a Stoic seeks not just peace, but wisdom. And what better source of enduring wisdom than the teachings of those who walked the Stoic path centuries before us? Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, names etched into the stone of philosophy not because they conquered empires, but because they conquered themselves. To read their words again at night is not an act of study, but a ritual of remembrance. These ancient Stoic philosophers were not detached thinkers. They were soldiers, slaves, emperors, and advisors who battled the same inner storms we do today. Anxiety, anger, temptation, pride. Their words are not theoretical, but lived. They are forged from real struggle and shaped by disciplined reflection. When we revisit their teachings, we don't just gain knowledge. We borrow their clarity, borrow their strength. Reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations at Night reminds us that even the most powerful man in the world questioned himself, doubted his reactions, and strived to be kind, just, and rational. When Marcus writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength," he is not speaking from a throne, but from a place of spiritual humility. From Epictetus, we are reminded of control and freedom. Born a slave, Epictetus teaches us that no one can take your peace unless you hand it over. His word, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters," echo like a shield in moments of inner turmoil. At night, rereading his teachings is like tightening the armor of self-mastery. And Seneca, the wise statesman, offers us the antidote to fear and haste. His letters encourage us to face death, loss, and misfortune with serenity. "He who is brave is free," he says. What a powerful sentence to meditate upon before sleep, when tomorrow's worries often crowd our minds. Revisiting these teachings every night is not mere repetition, it is reinforcement. It is the process of carving deep grooves of virtue into our character so that when life tests us, as it always does, we respond not by default, but by design. Like sharpening a blade each night so that it's ready at dawn, we sharpen our reason, patience, and principles through these timeless words. When you read the Stoics, you're not escaping life, you're preparing for it. You're aligning yourself with values that do not expire. The words of the Stoic sages are not just quotes to admire, but compasses to guide. The more we reread them, the more we embody them. Reflection. Don't just read wisdom, let it soak into your skin. The Stoics are not voices from the past. They are companions for your future. In their words, you don't just find knowledge, you find yourself. Every night you reread the Stoics, you don't grow older, you grow wiser. You don't move backward with time, you move deeper into truth. 5. Emptying the mind of worldly worries. As night falls and the world grows still, the Stoic prepares not only for sleep, but for spiritual retreat. This is the hour to free the mind from the tight grip of worldly concerns, the deadlines, the opinions, the anxieties about tomorrow. They must be released. A restless mind is the enemy of inner peace, and no one can live with clarity if their thoughts are constantly hijacked by fear, regret, or ambition. To a Stoic, peace is not a luxury, it is a discipline. And that discipline includes deliberately emptying the mind before the day ends. This is not about denial or escapism. It is about choosing what truly deserves your energy. Worries about things outside your control, the economy, the actions of others, the past, are not worthy of your sleepless nights. The Stoic knows if you cannot influence it, you must not be enslaved by it. Each evening becomes a ritual cleansing. It is the time to lay down burdens that were never truly yours. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." In this spirit, the Stoic detaches, not to run away, but to return stronger tomorrow. To detach from the world at night is to re-enter it with wisdom by dawn. There is something profound about silence when paired with intention, turning off distractions, turning inward and telling the mind, "Now we rest." This is not laziness, this is mastery. Just as the body requires sleep, the soul requires stillness. A Stoic does not wait for peace to arrive. They create it from within. Emptying the mind is not the same as erasing thought. It means filtering thought, clearing out the petty, the useless, the imaginary battles. It means identifying which concerns are real and which are merely noise. It is about training the mind to hold only what is necessary, useful, and aligned with virtue. And perhaps most powerfully, it is a reminder of how small we truly are in the grand scheme of things. Our troubles, though they feel heavy, are often dust in the wind. The Stoic recognizes this cosmic scale, and in that perspective, they find calm. Letting go is not loss, it is liberation. Reflection. Before you sleep, unchain your mind. The world can wait. Inner freedom begins when you decide to stop clinging to what you cannot change. The mind is a guest house. Don't let worry be the permanent tenant. At the end of each day, let stillness move in. 6. Practicing quiet gratitude. In the solitude of night, when the noise of the world finally fades, the Stoic turns inward, not to count what is missing, but to reflect on what already is. This is the hour not for indulgence or longing, but for cultivating a quiet and steady gratitude. Gratitude in the Stoic tradition is not loud. It is not the kind paraded on social media or exaggerated in public speeches. It is silent, personal, and deeply internal. It comes from recognizing that life owes us nothing, and yet gives us everything we need to grow in virtue, if we are wise enough to see it. To train in gratitude is to train in perception. It means looking at what you have, not with the eyes of desire, but with the eyes of wisdom. A warm bed, a functioning body, a mind that can reflect. These are not small blessings. They are sacred tools for the journey of life. The Stoic does not wait for extraordinary things to happen in order to feel thankful. They practice thankfulness as a form of clarity. But what makes Stoic gratitude powerful is that it is independent of external circumstances. A Stoic can be grateful even in suffering, not for the pain itself, but for the chance to endure it with courage. Gratitude becomes a way to reclaim one's agency. This moment is mine, and I will meet it with strength, not complaint. In the stillness of evening, the Stoic reviews the day not only to assess mistakes, but also to appreciate what was good, no matter how small. A kind word, a meal shared, a lesson learned, a breath taken in silence. These are the markers of a life well lived. To acknowledge them quietly is to refuse the mind's tendency to focus only on what's wrong. This kind of gratitude does not lead to complacency. On the contrary, it fuels resilience. When we are grateful for what we already possess, we are less tempted by the chaos of envy, resentment, or greed. The mind becomes anchored in what is, not what could have been. And this anchor grants a calm that no storm can move. Gratitude is not passive. It is a choice, one that must be trained like any other virtue. And the best time to train it is not in moments of celebration, but in the quiet closing chapters of the day, when reflection is deepest and distractions are few. Reflection. A grateful mind is not a blind one. It sees clearly, chooses wisely, and rests peacefully. In every night's silence, gratitude becomes a kind of wisdom. What you take for granted today, someone else would treasure forever. The Stoic knows this, and therefore sleeps in peace. 7. Setting intentions for tomorrow. As the world dims into quiet and the day breathes its final sigh, the Stoic does not merely drift into sleep. They close their evening with a gentle but powerful act, setting intentions for tomorrow. This is not planning in the rigid, anxious sense. It is a conscious act of directing the mind, not toward control, but toward purpose. To the Stoic, intention is not about predicting outcomes. It is about preparing one's character. Before bed, a Stoic might ask, "How shall I face tomorrow's challenges with patience, with wisdom, with courage?" They are not forecasting events. They are planting the roots of inner discipline. The goal is not a flawless day, but a virtuous one. In this practice, we turn away from wishful thinking and toward virtuous readiness. We cannot control how others will behave, what the world will throw at us, or how fortune may shift. But we can control the quality of our responses. Intention setting is the conscious sharpening of this awareness. It says, "I will aim to act with reason, not impulse, with kindness, not irritation, with courage, not fear." This nightly ritual is a form of inner alignment. Like a craftsman preparing his tools for the next day, the Stoic prepares the soul. The question is not, "What will I do tomorrow?" but "Who will I be no matter what happens?" This subtle shift in focus transforms the mind from being externally reactive to internally anchored. The wisdom of setting intentions is that it humbles the ego. It acknowledges that we may fail, that we are imperfect, but it also asserts that we can improve, that every day is a fresh opportunity to practice the art of living well. Even if we fall short, the act of aiming higher shapes us. It bends the arc of our character, slowly, patiently, toward virtue. Unlike resolutions driven by ego or achievement, Stoic intentions are rooted in values. They are not promises to the world, but commitments to the self. A Stoic may whisper before sleep, "Tomorrow I will try again. I will meet anger with calm, greed with contentment, and fear with clarity." No fanfare, no drama, just quiet resolve. Reflection. The best way to greet tomorrow is to shape who you intend to be when it arrives. The world may surprise you, test you, even wound you, but it cannot take your intention unless you surrender it. Set your course not by the winds of fate, but by the compass of your character. 8. Avoiding emotional exhaustion through simplicity. In a world overwhelmed by noise, urgency, and performance, the soul begins to wear down, slowly, subtly, until the body is heavy and the mind is frayed. This is not always due to physical exhaustion, but emotional fatigue. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Their antidote? Simplicity. Simplicity is not about denial. It is not a rejection of joy, ambition, or aesthetics. Rather, it is a conscious return to the essentials. To live simply, in the Stoic sense, means to stop chasing what is unnecessary, both in possessions and in emotions. The Stoic clears mental clutter like a gardener pruning a tree, not to make it barren, but to help it thrive. Emotional exhaustion often comes not from what we do, but from how much we try to carry. Expectations, opinions, the pressure to please, the fear of missing out, the endless comparisons to others. Each one is a weight we willingly strap to our backs. And yet the Stoic reminds us, much of what we suffer is not required by life, but by our own choices. At night, the Stoic Emperor, like Marcus Aurelius, might reflect, Did I hold on to anything today that I could have let go? This isn't passive detachment, but active discernment. Do I need to argue about this? Must I win this? Is this worth my peace? Simplicity is a quiet strength. It means choosing not to engage in every drama, not to accumulate every opinion, not to absorb every emotional storm. Simplicity restores emotional balance because it draws a boundary between what matters and what doesn't. It teaches us to let go of things outside our control. It allows us to say no, not just to others, but to ourselves. No, I don't need to scroll one more hour. No, I don't need to prove my worth. No, I don't need to fix everything for everyone. This mindset is especially vital before sleep. The Stoic does not lie awake rehearsing arguments or craving approval. Instead, they allow the dust of the day to settle. They breathe in silence, exhale the clutter, and remind themselves that very little is truly needed for happiness. Simplifying one's emotional landscape is not a retreat. It's an act of courageous clarity. It invites us to focus on what we can control: our principles, our character, our effort. Everything else we can release with grace. In doing so, we find a deeper kind of rest, not just for the body, but for the soul. Reflection. Emotional clarity begins when you stop carrying what you were never meant to hold. Simplify not because life is less, but because your peace is worth more. The soul heals, not in the noise of more, but in the stillness of less. 9. Going to bed on time as a practice of self-discipline. In the age of endless scrolling, midnight emails, and dopamine-driven distractions, the simple act of going to bed on time has become a radical form of self-discipline. For the Stoics, discipline was not about rigid perfection, but about harmony between mind, body, and nature. And what could be more natural than sleep? Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with the weight of the Roman world on his shoulders, reminded himself in his meditations that even he, leader of armies, governor of nations, needed rest. You are not a machine, he would remind himself. You have a nature. Obey it. To ignore the body's rhythm, to delay sleep for meaningless entertainment or shallow distractions, is not freedom. It is bondage masquerading as liberty. Going to bed on time is not about strict routines, but about honoring boundaries. It's the moment where we stop trying to control the world and begin trusting that the day's effort is enough. It's a daily discipline that echoes the Stoic principle of moderation, sophrosyn. In sleeping well, we don't abandon our responsibilities. We strengthen ourselves for them. Yet modern life tempts us into believing that rest is weakness, that success belongs to those who never sleep. The truth is, exhaustion is not a badge of honor, it is a warning. A tired mind is reactive, scattered, and impulsive. A well-rested mind is calm, present, and grounded. The Stoics were not obsessed with hustle, they were obsessed with virtue, and virtue cannot grow in a fatigued mind. When we go to bed on time, we reclaim control from the chaos. We show respect not only to our future self, but to the body entrusted to us. We embrace the Stoic idea of oikeiosis, living in accordance with our nature. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a duty. It refuels the willpower we need to live justly, courageously, and wisely the next day. Moreover, sleep itself is a Stoic meditation. It reminds us of impermanence. Each night is a small death, and each morning a small rebirth. As Epictetus would urge, let us sleep not with anxiety or indulgence, but with peace and readiness. Go to sleep, he might say, as one who has acted with virtue today and will rise again tomorrow to do the same. Reflection. Choosing to rest is not laziness, it's wisdom and practice. Sleep early not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to walk away from the noise. Self-control begins the moment you tell yourself, this is enough for today. 10. ending the day with prayer or silent meditation. In the Stoic tradition, the end of the day is not simply a closing of the eyes, it is a return to oneself. After all the noise, movement, and responsibilities, a moment of stillness becomes not just helpful, but sacred. Whether it is through a quiet prayer or silent meditation, this ritual marks the transition from action to reflection, from outward engagement to inward clarity. For a Stoic, the purpose of life is not to chase pleasure or to run from pain, but to live with virtue, in harmony with nature and reason. The closing moments of the day serve as a gentle invitation to return to these values. Prayer, in this context, is not a desperate plea to the gods for favors. It is a quiet conversation with the divine within you, a humble expression of gratitude for the day, and a plea for wisdom in the next. Silent meditation, on the other hand, is not about emptying the mind entirely. It is about listening to the stillness beneath the chaos. It's where we allow the dust of the day to settle and observe our own minds without judgment. What was I clinging to? What stirred my anger? What moments brought me joy? In silence, we become aware, and awareness is the seed of virtue. Marcus Aurelius often ended his days in this way. Though he was a warrior and ruler, his nights were not filled with strategy, but introspection. He would turn inward, recording his thoughts in what we now call meditations, not for fame, but for spiritual discipline. His reflections were often meditative in nature, revealing a man seeking not victory over others, but mastery over himself. In a modern world saturated with stimulation, ending the day without a screen, without noise, and without needing to produce anything is an act of rebellion, a quiet, courageous stand for the soul's well-being. This final pause reminds us that our worth is not measured by what we did today, but how we faced it. Did we respond with calm? Did we speak with integrity? Did we act from virtue? In Stoic practice, the day's end is not just rest, it's ritual. It's a time to release control and return to presence. In silence, we reconnect with what truly matters. And that's how a Stoic ends the day, not with exhaustion, but with understanding. Reflection. True strength is found in stillness. When the world quiets down and you are left alone with your thoughts, what remains is your character. Nourish it with silence, with honesty, and with peace. Let your last thought at night be a peaceful one, for that is how the soul prepares for tomorrow. The night is not merely the end of a day. For a Stoic, it is the beginning of deeper understanding. Marcus Aurelius turned his nights into a fortress of wisdom. No matter how chaotic the world became, the emperor returned to his own inner citadel every evening, guided by reason, humility, and discipline. That is the essence of Stoicism, mastering yourself, especially when no one is watching. So take these 10 lessons to heart. Let your own nights become sacred. Reflect, write, release, and recharge. You don't need to be a Roman emperor to live like one. You just need intention, stillness, and the courage to look within. Let the night make you wiser, just as it did for the last great Stoic emperor.